That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Carmen, the directorial debut of Benjamin Millepied, which premiered at the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival and is being released courtesy of Sony Pictures Classics on April 21st, 2023.
This movie will definitely be on my worst of 2023 list.
I have to say I kind of loathed this film, which is nearly 2 hours long, and an hour and 45 minutes of that I'd say are pretty terrible. I think it's worth noting that Benjamin is the choreographer, or was the choreographer on Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, where of course he met and then married Natalie Portman. And then this is an update on the classic opera, the 1875 Georges Bizet opera, Carmen, which of course had its basis from Russian poet Alexander Pushkin's The Gypsies, an 1824 poem. There was a French novel in 1845 by Prosper Mérimée. And then of course in film, we've seen this done many times before, including Otto Preminger's Carmen Jones with an all-black cast in 1954, which scored Dorothy Dandrige her Best Actress Oscar nomination, the first black woman to receive that. There's also Carmen, a hip opera from Robert Townsend in 2001. And then, of course, we can't forget the Carlos Saura 1983 version from his flamenco trilogy as well. So I guess we should, come eventually in this conversation to the point of why we came to make Carmen Immigrant Song, is what I think it should be called.
Okay, the synopsis. To escape a murderous cartel, the captivating young Carmen is northbound, her route traversing an area patrolled by the U.S. government and fanatical Americans who hunt people for sport. Mixed into the horde is a local veteran, Aidan, dragged into the ignoble mission as a means of earning money for his impoverished family. Soon the star-crossed sweethearts intersect, and with hearts leading the way, take the wheel with Los Angeles on the horizon. Carmen's goal is to seek refuge in a nightclub run by an infamous family friend named Masilda and bartender Gabrielle. But as the song goes, love is a rebellious bird, and perhaps love may not be enough when the laws of physics and men aren't far behind. That is the full story, and then Aidan dies in the end. That's it.
Except I wish this film was half as interesting as the synopsis.
This makes it seem, it is as basic as this synopsis. There is no depth to any of these things. I don't even know where to begin. I am so shocked at how bad I think the story and the screenplay are.
This seems like it was crafted by people that have, one, might not know about love, but also certainly don't know about the current state of things.
I think the people who made this don't know about romance. They don't know about sex. They don't know about how the federal government hires people. They don't know, the reality of, crossing the border illegally from Mexico to the United States. It is shocking to me. And I'm offended as a Mexican American whose family crossed the border illegally, how it's depicted. It just seems I don't know, were any Mexicans involved in the writing of this story? It just seems like a really odd thing to include this, what I would think or how I feel is traumatic themes. It just feels exploitative.
It does read as exploitation because the weight it doesn't construct any weight behind any of these things. It just frivolously throws them out there. The white man that Paul Mescal as Aidan kills early on to save Carmen, I think is a very good case in point in that.
So Aidan is a Marine veteran, and he's living in a border town in Southern California. And we see that he's out of work. He's by a railroad track grilling burgers and hot dogs. And I knew we were in trouble when we meet his sister.
Yes, Nicole Da Silva.
Yeah, that lady's acting, which I'm sure is partially the script and the directing.
It's partially this script is garbage.
But it was crunchy, and she's basically telling him oh my God, there's so much about it I don't like. I don't understand if this is a musical. The musicality of this film feels so random that I feel like you can't call it a musical.
I don't think you can either because it's bringing a brand new sense of musicality to this famous opera, but then through choreography, which I think is also subpar.
I wrote down that I think all of the choreography looks like the dancers are warming up to do a better performance, but we didn't see that performance.
It is astoundingly underwhelming. It's so bizarre. I think we need to shout out these screenwriters though. Lisa Loomis is credited as having an earlier screenplay. She's the screenwriter of Girl Interrupted. So I don't know what was changed by Loïc, Barrère, and Alexander Dinelaris, who is an Oscar winner for writing Birdman.
Aidan is like sitting in like an empty field singing, and his sister is like, you can't make money this way. We need to pay our mortgage. I'm taking you down to find a job. And what is this job opportunity? She takes his ass to the border where the border patrol officers are. We see that they're like, CBP employees. And basically like people are volunteering to hunt Mexicans crossing the border. Mm-hmm. And she says like, if you do good there, maybe they'll get you a job.
Playing the most dangerous game. Yeah.
That's not how getting a job with the federal government works.
Especially if you're a veteran.
And then veterans get priority for federal positions like that. So it makes no sense that this Marine veteran is having trouble finding a job, but then thinks that volunteering to go hunt Mexicans is the way to get a CBP job. That's just not how that works at all. And I just, again, don't think that... There's a line where Aidan asks the person he's supposed to be writing with, like, well, does anyone speak Spanish? Like, because he's supposed to be like the more sensitive one, like, well, if we do catch people, how are we going to communicate? And his partner says, well, does anyone speak deer? Like, they're going to shoot these Mexicans like people hunt deer. I don't feel like this movie deserves to trigger us this way and then be so damn stupid. Like,
I agreed. There's nothing that...
But anyway, Aidan does this, and then he's with this racist-ass partner, and they come upon a truck. So it's important to know the opening scene of the film, which I actually thought was very promising, because we get I believe that's a flamenco dancer. The script, I don't know if that's Carmen's mom. Initially, we have like narration of Carmen reading a letter, and it sounds like that's not her mom, but then we'll get to Rossy de Palma's character later, who basically says that is her mom. Anyway, the opening is Carmen's mom dancing like on a platform in the desert by her house, which I thought was beautiful and adds a lot of tension. And these two men show up threatening her like, where's Carmen? And she refuses to say. They kill her. And that's when Carmen runs to the border. None of that is explained.
Nope.
The only reason I knew that was a cartel is because on IMDb it says to escape a murderous cartel.
Yeah, I have no idea why they're coming after her, why they wouldn't continue to pursue her.
None of that is explored. Literally, two handsome men show up, shoot the mom, the end. It's never revisited.
They wait for her to finish dancing.
Which I'm glad they did, because that was probably...
That's the best part of the film.
Beyond Rossy de Palma, that's the best part of the film.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, well, I did like Nicholas Bertel's score, and yes, Jörg Widmer, who shot Malik's Hidden Life, it looks fantastic. It is not enough to salvage any of this.
Yeah, I guess to be positive, the best part is how the film looks, the cinematography, Rossy de Palma.
She looks great, but she's always...
She's transfixing. Like, I want to see her in a lot of things.
Well, the work of Almodovar is a good place to start. But I think that she, yes, she's always captivating. But again, they make her do this repeated kind of limited choreography that I think limits her as well.
I thought that this filmmaker or someone should remake Burlesque, and Rossy de Palma could play Cher's character.
I think somebody else should remake Burlesque. I don't think Benjamin Millepied should be making films.
So Aidan and his partner are out on the border that night, and they come across a pickup truck that looks like it's been abandoned. So of course they get out to see, and then the partner sees that there are Mexicans in the truck, and he starts shooting and killing them. And Aidan's trying to stop him, and his partner grabs Carmen, and it looks like he's about to shoot her when Aidan shoots his partner, which seemed excessive. Like, he could have just said, don't do it. But anyway, then Aidan and Carmen flee. And another part of the story that's so confusing to me is, and again, why I think this whole like immigrant journey seems so odd is that where does Carmen think she's going? She seems very confident in where she needs to be, which is ultimately to this nightclub Rossy de Palma owns.
Which means strong shadow.
But once she gets there, she seems confused as to why she's there.
When she finally meets what's Rosie's Masilda? She's like, what are you doing here? Are you looking for a job? She goes, maybe. What? Oh my god!
Tell me that wasn't the dumbest thing.
But there are many more stupid beats before that because
the cab driver.
So they hole up in this hotel and barely get away, beat down these two cops and tie them together.
Handcuff them to the radiator.
So now it's like we're in too deep, like Omar Epps, and they find this taxi cab driver named Angel, and she's like, we're gonna go to your city, the city of angels. He's like, I'm down for an adventure. Then they just happen to stop in the middle of this street in the night where there are fireworks going off, and it turns out to be fairgrounds, and there's some kind of dance recital going on. And
so they're by a border town, and then they meet this random cab driver and say, take us to your city, the city of angels. And he goes, let's go. That's like a 3-hour drive. No discussion of money. We understand they don't have money. Then they're driving for a period of time. I can't tell how long it is. They stop at like a random spot where there are fireworks, and it looks really cool.
Yes, again.
And there's a dance sequence that, again, felt like they were warming up to do something more impressive. And that's where they meet this impossibly handsome man named Pablo, who speaks like he was born and raised in like Silver Lake, I don't know. And he agrees to drive them the rest of the way. Who is this man? Why is he agreeing to do this?
But when she tries to give the taxi driver money, he's like, oh no, too much. What?
And that's after we see that taxi driver, when he stops at this fireworks show, it's nighttime. And when they revisit him, it's in the morning.
So
he's just standing in front of the car. So this fool waited all night, and then when she offers him some cash, he doesn't want it.
Oh god! And then they take it like Paul Mescal has to pee. So,
but what are they saying about that? Like, so like just this other Mexican is just gonna like blindly help this person
for free?
I just find it out of control.
So then there's a bathroom break, and this Pablo tries to seduce Carmen. That dialogue is at the level of Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
There are multiple lines of dialogue that reminded me of The Room. At that level. And then that's when she's saying, well, that's my man. Can we talk about... So because of Paul Mescal's recent Oscar nomination, I guess, and then I had seen that Jamie Dornan was in the movie, but I was mistaken. He was originally cast as the Aidan character. I thought this would be a good movie. And I didn't see After Sun. You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But Paul Mescal in this movie is so flat. His acting is like a rubber chicken, and everything's like, yeah, okay.
Well, to me, he seems almost alarmed. Like, oh, it's almost like I'm gearing up to have a dance scene. So I gotta get with it. He looked like a deer in the headlights to this.
I felt like his performance had no energy.
It didn't. And Melissa Barrera, who's beautiful, and I didn't mind her in the Heights. I don't really care for the Scream films. Who you didn't even recognize. I had to point it out at the end.
Her character is so like pointless. Like she's not.
We don't know anything about her.
My only reference for Carmen is Carmen Jones. And when I think about Carmen Jones,
when I think about Dorothy Dandrige,
when I think about Dorothy Dandrige and the outfit, and it's just like that is a woman who looks like people would make poor decisions for her. And the story of Carmen is about a woman who leads a man astray
to ruin.
Mm-hmm. So you would expect it to be like this alluring, seductive. And again, my only reference is Dorothy Dandrige. And this lady in this movie playing Carmen, what's her name?
Melissa Barrera.
She is stunning.
Beautiful.
But gives nothing.
Beautiful gowns.
The styling is like not giving anything. And then she was so flat to me that I didn't recognize that I had just seen her in Scream 6. Mm-hmm. Or in The Heights. I did not recognize that lady. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It is so oddly flat, and I couldn't wait for it to be done. I don't know.
Okay, so when they get to before they get to Rossy de Palma's club, we get like there's like a fantasy supernatural component to the film because in the beginning when Carmen's mother gets killed, she sets the house on fire. And then we see at the same time, another plot point that is barely explained is we see Aidan boxing on a punching bag in his porch. And then all of a sudden, like parts of his yard catch on fire, which feels supernatural.
Yeah, because that's them. It's
like they're kismet or something.
It's kismet. The world is now united in fire.
And then we also get these dreamlike fantasy states of Rossy de Palma, which are striking, right? I mean, she's striking to look at on screen. So it's like, ooh, what is this? And then we see ultimately that's where Carmen was headed. Like it was her destiny to be there. I understand that, but I feel like this script is such a damn mess that you don't need to add more confusion to it. They needed to pare this down. And I almost wish this movie would have just been about this woman showing up at this club. And it's all ambiguous as to why she's there and what's going on. And then this mysterious gringo shows up.
Well, if you're going to shackle it to this immigrant experience, then make it that.
Who they refer to as a blondie, but he's not blonde.
He's not. But they again, it doesn't have the proper weight of that at all. It just feels like an afterthought. Like she crossed the border. But what does that mean for her psychologically?
So many things. And then when we get to I didn't like that every car we see, I couldn't tell where we were. It looks all very generic and old-timey. All the cars are like between 70s and 90s. I didn't understand that because it is modern time. We do know there are cell phones. We do see the opening, when we meet Aidan, one of his buddies is driving like a brand new Mustang. So that's how I knew, it's like 2022.
Sure, but I did write down initially it had kind of a nice 80s Jean-Jacques Benet vibe, like the Cinema du Look, which I kind of liked.
But then if they're in LA, it's like, where are they in LA? And then there's a scene where once Carmen and Aidan get settled in, because Rossy de Palma welcomes them with open arms because she is the best friend of Carmen's mom, which was confusing, and says that she's been waiting for her and like, this is your home now. And then they have like an outdoor party scene at the patio that looked like a Saturday night in the arts district.
Yeah, it did.
Like the people there all look like,
although I joked when they
30-something tech workers.
When they get stopped by the fireworks, I'm like, they're in Hawthorne. Come for them.
So I just, while I liked how the movie looked, it just didn't feel like, where are they? And then Rossy de Palma's club is huge.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful inside.
It's beautiful, like the actual like dance ballroom area. But then there's also like a hotel attached, which I swear looked like it was filmed in a bathhouse.
Which is sparsely, it's like COVID level populated. At Carmen's final dance sequence right before the climax, there's maybe a handful.
There's a smattering of people.
There's like maybe 15 people, and there's thunderous applause to
that made no damn sense.
This large ensemble of dancers and musicians doing like.
But before we get there, Elsa Pataky is in the movie as like the bartender in the club. She couldn't have felt more out of place. Her acting was crunchy.
The scene where he wants a payphone. She's the bartender, and he goes, and Carmen and Masilda are getting reacquainted, and she's supposed to feed him. And he's like, I need a payphone. She's like, well, you can use my cell phone. He's like, oh no, it's private.
Also, I hated Elsa's hair.
Oh yeah,
it's no shade to the stylist because they did a good job. It's nice blonde highlighted hair. It just looks crazy on her. But
then she's like, use the house phone. He's like, no, I can't do that. I need a payphone. She's like, I don't think those exist anymore. And then immediately he's like, well, I think there's one outside.
First of all, Aidan's character knows that he shouldn't use the cell phone or the house phone because it can be traced. But it's like, then you should know that a payphone is probably more easily traced. And then like you just said, the fact that Elsa's character is like, payphones don't exist. Oh, wait, there's one right there. Like, who wrote this? Okay.
Loïc, Barrère, Alexander Dinelaris, and Lisa Loomis.
The romance between Aidan and Carmen, there is zero chemistry. And up until the point where they actually like...
Well, all of a sudden they're making out.
Yeah, up until the point where they're making out, I wasn't clear like if these two people even want to be around each other. That was really poorly done. And then one of the weakest sex scenes I've seen in a long time is between these two, because they're sitting in this bathhouse-like bedroom and they start caressing, and there's mild, like we see her breast, which I feel like was wasted in this movie. And then right at the point where things might actually get sort of like erotic or whatever, it cuts to like a harsh cut to another scene, and we never revisit their physical connection. I was also super distracted by how dirty Paul Mescal's fingernails were. Why were they so dirty?
Because they're dancing around in the dirt.
He had taken at least 2 showers.
At least.
Why are your hands so dirty? And then there's that scene where, so like after they have sex, then there's a moment where Aidan is trying to tell Carmen like what they need to do and how he needs to leave because he's in trouble and she can stay, and she gets mad. No one tells me what to do.
But it's like
I'm gonna do what feels right for me. And then we cut to a moment where he's saying like, well, I need to do this, and then she gets mad saying, why are you saying I? It's about we. You sound crazy, lady. You sound like the character in The Room who says, I'm going to do what I want to do. What do you think I should do? Like, what?
Juliette Danielle.
Yeah. It's giving Juliette Danielle.
It's terrible because then, of course, we don't know how... Because the phone call he makes from the payphone, which turns out to put the cops in the area, who also seem to know a lot more than what you'd think, because they're following Carmen around eventually. He somehow gets a hold of an old army buddy.
Can we talk about that? So he contacts a Marine buddy, and this guy shows up. And so how did you get a hold of him? Like, did you have his number memorized and use the payphone? But the Marine buddy meets him, and Aidan says, I need help. I need money. And his friend goes, wish I could help you.
Right, like, why are you here?
Why are you even here?
Why did you come here?
Then he goes, well, if you need money, there's a boxing match tomorrow, like an underground fight club match tomorrow. So it's like, oh, let's tie in the punching bag from the beginning of the film. So the bounty is 10,000, but you'll probably get more because you're a white boy, and people will bet against you. So that's like at the hour 15 point. And then I had checked my time like 5 times because this felt so long. And at the 90-minute mark, there was still no boxing match, and I felt hopeless. This movie felt so long. But he does actually go to the boxing match, but not before we get Carmen's like big performance, which seems so pointless. And you already mentioned
that he sat through and cries and then goes off to his fight, and then she follows him to the fight. And then once he shows up to the fight, which is...
That underground boxing scene, first of all, looked like a joke. It looked like a scene out of Step It Up.
Well, they're trying to be kind of West Side Story-ish, I think. But
and then the MC of the match is this older gentleman who has a voice like he drank hot apple cider. He sounds like Tone Loc.
I thought he sounded like Sada Baby. I thought like Whole Lotta Choppers is what that...
And then he does like a rap performance to the match that I thought was so corny.
It's so corny, but as soon as Paul Mescal shows up there, I'm like, there's no way he's going to win.
And then the guy who he's fighting... I don't know if you agree, but I thought he looked exactly like Trixie Mattel out of drag.
Oh my God.
I was like, what is happening right now?
But when he first comes up to the men that are obliterating one another, I'm like, he's not, what's he going to do? Wow. I guess win $10,000. But then, of course, because because Carmen had left her final performance. Also, Rosie De Palma is saying that, I'm going to rename my club for you. That's what she offers Carmen, who's going to abandon you and leave.
But this is why I think this whole immigrant story is so offensive, because it's like this woman has no plan, and then you actually get to a safe space, and it's like they make her seem like she's so stupid. Like, why are you chasing this random man you don't know who's going to get in trouble for murder when you have a safe place to be? And what is your plan? Like, you are here illegally, and I just found that so troubling.
Well, and also Masilda's like, I built this place with your mother, every corner.
Then why is did your mother get deported? There are too many things happening that are not explained. And the climax is the boxing match happens, Aidan wins, gets the cash, and then there's this detective who we see 3 times, and we just see this detective driving. We never hear him talk.
He does talk because he recognizes the dead man.
Yes.
The white man that Aidan shoots.
But after that, we see him standing at a gas station, no dialogue. We see him driving, no dialogue. Then we see him again. He has showed up to Rossy De Palma's club, like you mentioned, probably from the Trace call. And then after Carmen's performance, we see her leave the club, and the detective follows her. And I just thought, how do they know? What was the description of Carmen? A beautiful Latina woman with long dark hair. So you drive to LA and think that, like, how did you pinpoint? The city's filled with women who look like her.
He used his spidey sense, and he gets to this fight right as it's ending.
That shit is so stupid.
And then it's like pew pew pew, start shooting, and then of course Paul Mescal gets shot.
But it's not even that dramatic. It's like the fight is done. Paul has his money. He and Carmen are embracing, and then all of a sudden, like 2 police cars show up into this warehouse, and everyone runs. And then you see one officer shoot the gun once. How did he know who he was shooting? And then he shoots Paul Mescal. But it's like so peripheral. The main character just got shot and was killed, and they make it seem like an extra was shot. So then we see him running with Carmen in bad shape, and then he can't run anymore. And then we get a dream sequence where Paul Mescal and Carmen are dancing. And that the screening we were at, there were only like 6 people, but like, it was, if we were in I can't imagine there being a theater filled with people watching this movie, but if there were, I feel like they would all be laughing.
It's bad.
It's really bad. the choreography.
I feel like I could choreograph something like that. But it's clear, because I've seen other films directed by choreographers that are much better. But it reminded me, it's trying to have that moment that Andrei Prelichai is trying to have at the end of Paulina, which starred Juliette Binoche, where it all culminates in kind of this beautiful dance sequence that we've been leading up to that's full of surreal moments and symbolism, etc. But this doesn't do it.
No.
It also, of course, changes the trajectory we're accustomed to with Carmen, who's been usually is murdered, and she's the survivor in this.
But I have no hope for her, and I also don't think that this is such a weird. Like, I know this is supposed to be like an alternate take on the story, but I just don't feel like none of it makes sense. These characters are making stupid decisions.
The people that wrote it didn't research or bother to seemingly speak with anyone that's had the experiences that
there's no
interiority
interiority to the two main characters, so it's like I don't know if like is Aidan suffering from PTSD and that's why he's having a hard time finding work. Carmen doesn't seem to have a plan for. She also doesn't seem like she ruins men.
No.
But then it's also like, why were those drug cartel people looking for her? Because they go to the house looking for her and just end up killing her mom. What would you give this movie?
1.
I would give it 1 out of 5. I think it's terrible. I would give it 0.5, but I think the cinematography is good and Rossy de Palma's fun to look at. What else do you want to say?
As far as abstract films by choreographers, I'd recommend Ma by Celia Rolson Hall, which I enjoyed much more than something like this. That I think Mr. Millepied is trying to do things like that, and maybe he shouldn't. I don't know.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.